Hi everyone, it's Alan with Sentient Future. So today is January 29th, 2019, and I'm about to go deliver my very first keynote. This is exciting stuff. I just wanted to record how I felt. So obviously a little bit nervous. I do know the content well. Don't know quite what to expect from the audience. I do know who has preceded me. So I'll give it my best and we'll record it and see how it goes. And whatever happens, I know that I will be able to take it and learn from it.
Our next speaker and our closing keynote is going to be Alan Funston, founder of Sentient Future, and is a Sauder MBA graduate and Bachelor of Engineering graduate as well from UBC. So as a professional engineer, management consultant, and business leader turned full-time dad to 3 toddlers, Alan still manages to involve himself in many of Sauder's and UBC's events, all the while consulting business leaders through Sentient Future. I've spoken with Alan extensively, and what I can infer is that, as with his clients, he will seek to unlock others' time with a fulfilling modern approach to intentional living designed for augmentation by technology. And without further ado, I would like to introduce Alan to us, to everybody here for his speech. Everybody, round of applause.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, great. So, yeah, my name is Alan. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for having me. Charles, he and his team have done a lot of work in preparing for this event, so please, a round of applause for Charles and his team. So, today, just a couple of things. I'd like to talk with you about some ideas, some insights and some tools that I've come across and developed that I think will really help you in your careers and in your life. There's a very different take on it, and we are going to go both sort of deep into some concepts as well as broad. So I hope that you are sort of awake and aware and ready for this, because I will try to keep up the energy, and this will be something that may or may not make a lot of sense right now, or you may not be able to apply it immediately, but trust me that it will make a big difference in your career if you keep it in mind. Just talk about it. So, I want to share with you the bottom line up front. And that is that if you empathize with others and you serve them virtuously, that you yourself will prosper. Now, the rest of this presentation is going to be explaining why. So, a little bit about me and my story. I'm hoping that through sharing my story and my unique ideas that you'll get value out of this conversation. So the first is I started off as a funny-looking kid, ended up as a funny-looking adult, and along the way had a good educational career, met the love of my life. I'm happily married. I have 3 kids. We had twins, and now I have a 10-month-old, and I'm a full-time dad. So that has been a whirlwind for me. I've always wanted to be a dad, but at the same time, because you can never quite predict what that's going to be. And little kids, at some point, if and when that's right for you, they teach you more about yourself than you'll ever be able to find out introspectively. Nevertheless, introspection is important, and it's kind of what I'm going to be advocating for here. Now, that also gave me an opportunity for which I'm extremely grateful, and that is the opportunity to rethink what I want to do with the balance of my career. Right? And those same questions may be questions that you're asking yourself now at the beginning of your career. I started off in engineering consulting with a company called Sandwell, that turned into Rosenco, and did dynamic modeling of logistics systems, tried to make them more efficient, tried to inform business decisions. It ultimately morphed into management consulting, but it was a technical guy. Around the time of the downturn, a bunch of my peers, unfortunately, were let go from the company because we couldn't sustain, we didn't have enough work because our clients couldn't get funding, so on and so forth. And while I stayed on with the company, which was nice because I was senior at that time, it meant that I was back doing junior work, and I just wasn't growing at the rate that I wanted to professionally. So I moved to a company called CGC. It was a small manufacturing company, and that was a really rewarding experience because it sort of taught me about empathy. I was helping lead people who were twice my age who'd been working there for longer than I'd lived, and you kind of go in going, hey guys, I know nothing, right? But you do, and I want you to teach me. And when you've taught me, maybe there are things I can see that we can all do together a little differently. So that was a useful experience, and I actually went back to Asenka when the opportunity arose, because I missed the intellectual challenge, and led some teams, ultimately led the business line, which was really rewarding after completing my MBA and kind of convincing people, hey, I can do this. And then my kids came along, and then it was, you know what, for our family, I'm gonna take care of them. It's been really, really rewarding. But the question came, what was I going to do next? So, has anyone heard of the concept of ikigai? 1, 2, awesome. Okay. For those of you who haven't, it's a really useful framework. 4-circle, Venn diagram, pretty pictures. So, it is the intersection of what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. If you can find something at this intersection, work towards something at this intersection, that's an amazing spot. Because it's sustainable, right? You're getting rewarded for doing what you love and you're good at it, so there's lower risk. So, for me, I knew what I loved, I knew what I was good at, I'd been working already for 10 years. I knew what I could get paid for. There were certain skills that I was already paid for, but I wasn't quite sure what the world needed. Because you know what, helping large-scale transportation systems be more efficient, I mean, yes, someone needs that, but I felt I could be more passionate about something else or something new. So I had to give it a lot of thought. What is it that the world needed? It took me months to figure out who I was, months to figure out what I wanted to do, and what were some of the core problems that I wanted to solve. That ultimately formed Sentient Future as a consulting company. What problem am I trying to solve? I'm trying to solve the problem of regret. Now that's a big problem, and I guess the way I looked at it was, I've had a number of advantages. I've had a supporting, loving family. I had this opportunity to try and grow something that will create a difference. I felt like I owed society, I owe other people to do the absolute best I can for them. So a major problem that we will face, and we continue to face in life, is regret. The opposite side, fulfillment, is really what we're going for. A major cause of that, the attention economy. Has anyone heard of the attention economy? Okay, we'll come back to it later, but it's actually a particularly big threat, and will be in the coming years. I suspect it'll be particularly relevant to your careers, so it is something that's worth touching on. The root cause of it, though, really, is that we don't, as a society, tend to act on what we value. Not on what we truly value. We tend to act on what is beneficial to us short term. We are wired that way, right? There are ways to overcome it, but it's hard, right? We either don't know how to act on what we value, or we don't know what we value, right? So we've already had the value conversation, but there are some practical and intentional and structured ways to go about this. So what is it about? First of all, I had this realization: we value things, right? Some of the more complex animals do. We have the capacity for pleasure, we have the capacity for pain, we have the capacity for suffering. And so this question of, well, we should, or should we, behave in line with what we value, or should we just go after what gives us objectively more resources, like money? And I think everyone kind of knows we should go after what we value, but there is a need for that. We, along with the more complex animals, are sentient. Has anyone heard of that word before? So we have the capacity to feel, perceive, and experience subjectively. That actually matters a lot, and you'll get where I'm coming from in a moment. What I wanted to do was explore that idea and break out what did it mean, right, for us to be able to experience something subjectively. Well, starting with the left-hand model, it was at our core, what do we do? We sense our surroundings, we sense ourselves, we respond. We interpret what we sense with reason, and we interpret what we sense with emotion. We ultimately respond by deciding what we're going to do and we're going to act. Right? We are feedback loops among a variety of other things. When we look at the fact that I started here, but I'm influenced by my environment, and I influence my environment back, we're also processes. Right? We have inputs, we process them, we have outputs, information. Right? And lastly, if you zoom really far out, we're connected. I mean, these are things that we intuitively know, but is there a way to structure it in a way that we can actually figure out what we want to do and why, and go after it, and have an approach that we're confident in, that is regret-proof. So I thought it was possible, and I've spent a long time trying to figure it out. Okay? A long time. We're not going to go through this in detail, but this is the foundation of the body of work that I'm trying to build and create. And it kind of goes like this, right? We're going to look at just the three sections: sentient, process, and network. What I'm trying to do with sentient is break down the different things that we do, right? That we sense ourselves, we sense our surroundings. What's relevant when asking those questions? So when you ask yourself, well, who am I? What are some of the relevant questions? What's relevant about my surroundings? What is a useful emotional model so that I can communicate with other people as well as myself? How do I feel? I feel this way. Why does that matter, right? What are the different ways or categories of going through rational thought? And then ultimately, how do we make a decision? How do we ultimately making the decision itself, acting, and then the concept of time and space. Short side note on time and space. Time is our universal currency. I'll get back to why that is in a moment. But space is ultimately the market in which we trade time and sell time for things we value. I know we're getting theoretical here, but it will make a lot of sense as we turn back. Processes, there are a number of different ways to describe a process, and so I tried to ask myself, well, from a physiological perspective, physically, how can our body be considered a process, right? Or what would be its boundaries, what would be its purpose, what would be its biases, so on and so forth. Same thing with the mind, right? And same thing with the soul. I have a practical definition for the soul. That's a separate topic. And then ultimately the network, which I argue is the most important one, right? And what we have down here is a list of 24 virtues that were determined in a scientific study to be cross-culturally valued. Their opposites are 24 vices. And the only thing you need to know about them right now is that when you combine all of the virtues with the emotions that the virtues and the vices are behaviors, right? When you combine that with the emotions that we feel when we behave a certain way and we make other people feel, this is ultimately empathy, codified, right? It's understanding how we make other people feel, right? Which can be incredibly important, especially with little kids, and they're not entirely rational. I mean, no adult is, but kids definitely aren't. So, the only thing that you really need to come away with as far as this empathy model is concerned, this bottom portion, is that every virtue has something in common. We create trust and joy in other people's lives when we are virtuous, right? We either make them happier, right? Or we give them a greater sense of certainty, right? Those two things are inherently valuable to other people, and when you trust, when you create trust and joy in someone else's life, they love you, right? That trust and joy together is a definition of love. And vices are the exact opposite. What you do is you create the opposite of trust, which is in this model disgust, right? This like uncertainty, just I don't want anything to do with you, and or sadness, right? Just you make me sad. This is like you're disappointing me, so on and so forth, right? And the combination of sadness and disgust is remorse. Ultimately, when you are vicious to someone, you cause them to regret meeting you, spending time with you, working with you, so on and so forth. And we live in an increasingly more transparent world where people can, quick 140 or 280 characters, right, just take your name and drag it through the mud. Reputation matters above all else these days. And so I'm encouraging you at the beginning of your careers here to really take that seriously and not just protect it, but to grow it, right? To take a proactive stance in growing your reputation. And there are ways that we can go about doing that. So, the 10 insights that really come from this large body of work that are relevant to the conversations that we've had tonight and the workshops that you've had tonight are these. First of all, we're all sentient. We value things subjectively, right? And anything that is objective, whether it's money or whether it's time, whether it's physical things, this stand, right? These are all means to an end. They are not ends unto themselves. The ends are actually how you make people feel, right? This is useful. It makes me feel more comfortable, even though I may not look it. I'm not really that comfortable. And so it's just something to keep in mind, that people and how they feel is the end game. And this is talking from an engineer. I wouldn't say this if I didn't really believe it. Time is our universal currency. It buys everything. Money does not. You can buy relationships. You can buy self-esteem. You can buy money with time. Okay? So money is important, but really it's a baby brother to time. It is a not so awesome, what's the term? Proxy for time. Scheduling 100% of your time seems crazy. I've done it since the beginning of 2018. I don't regret it one bit. And the reason that I do it, and the reason I encourage you to try it, right, is this. Scheduling 100% of your time, first of all, it does not have to be rigid. The value in scheduling your time is not that you do everything you say you're going to do. Don't get me wrong, planning your day is important, and doing the stuff you said you wanted to do, that's important. Yes. The reason why you want to try scheduling 100% of your time, or at least have a plan for your day, is that you can protect yourself from things you don't value. There are going to be distractions more and more every day as you guys get older, as I get older, and the only way that we're going to be able to protect ourselves from that which we don't value and regret is when we have something we had planned to do. So that when a distraction comes along, we have to consciously choose to move over to it instead of the thing we said we were going to do at the beginning of the day or last night. So it's a practice I really encourage you to try. Right? It is a protection mechanism, and just we have to live in an increasingly distracted world. Prioritize. So when you're going to do right for other people, there's a sort of list of certain things that you should try to do first. First of all, give them value directly if you can. If someone is looking for a friend, be their friend. If someone is looking for something beautiful, they've just been amongst concrete and steel all day, show them something beautiful, right? That is going to be the most direct way to people's hearts, and that is sort of what matters in creating this joy and trust. If you can't give them value, give them time, so that they can pursue what they value. If you can't give them time, give them money so that they can buy time. If you can't give them money, then give them space and stay out of their way. That's the best thing that you can do for people. But start with giving them those experiences that they inherently value if you can. Number 5, regret is painful and occurs when we act contrary to what it is that we value. One thing I want to quickly touch on is this difference between a decision well made and the outcome. How you make a decision is entirely different from the outcome. You can make a decision extremely well and have a poor outcome, and that doesn't mean that you should regret your decision. If you went back to that same spot, knowing what you did at the time, knowing your values at the time, you wouldn't do anything differently. And so that's a great way to separate external factors from. It's a great way to not internalize external factors. Right? Things will come up, but that doesn't mean that you made a poor decision or that you should reflect on yourself as a poor decision maker. Similarly, you can make a poor decision that turns out well, and you still have stuff to learn. Number 6, the attention economy threatens fulfillment in business globally. This is a big one. I'm going to touch on this just quickly. So the attention economy is basically that we have a finite amount of attention and a growing amount of content or things to consume or spend on our attention. Anyone who's been through economics is when there's something of value that is in increasingly short supply, it gets extremely expensive. Marketing costs online, so on and so forth, are going to skyrocket, have been growing because of this. Attention is getting increasingly scarce. And there's 2 big problems. First of all, businesses, and this will affect probably all of you, it will make competitors out of every business in every sector. I could be a shoe salesperson, and I am now competing with Coca-Cola. Not because I sell soft drinks, but because I need attention to sell you my shoes, and if they are paying $100 per CPM, right, to get your attention to buy, Coca-Cola, then you forget you need new shoes, or you go to someone else, and I don't maybe have the depth in my pocketbook to be able to buy your attention. Buying attention will eventually become really difficult, if not impossible, for the majority of businesses. The worst problem of that, the attention economy, though, is what it does to our personal lives. So people who, I guess, because attention is increasingly short supply, there are going to be better and better technologies and methods used to grab and keep our attention, more addictive ones. Who here has binge-watched Netflix? Right? Okay, or anything like YouTube, it's all the same. And the thing is, when it's addictive, when it grabs our attention, we reflect back on the 5-hour, 6-hour, movie binging thing that we did, from 10 to 4 a.m. And we regret that we didn't just watch the one episode we told ourselves we would. And the problem with that is that we ultimately spend less time pursuing what we value. We have more regret in our lives, and we can't get that time back. Number 7, defining what you value identifies ways to enable self-fulfillment. So that's fairly self-evident, but the point is, you only have a finite amount of this. We don't know how much time we have. It's important to use what you have towards what you value, and including what other people value if you care about them. Number 8, defining what others value enables true service. So this is really the empathy piece, right? When I try to serve a customer or a client, I am asking myself, what emotion do they want to feel? What emotion are they feeling right now? Are they feeling stressed? Are they feeling scared? Are they feeling angry? Are they feeling sad? Maybe they don't necessarily want to feel joyful. Maybe they're good. Maybe they just want a little bit of certainty. They just want trust, right? They just want someone to calm down the waves and just the chaos that can be their lives, right? So when you think about a customer or a client or a colleague who you're ultimately serving, right? It's about what emotion do you want them to feel. When you do that at scale, you will win. Number 9, serving others virtuously is fulfilling and evokes joy and trust. So a lot of the big entrepreneurs who make millions, billions of dollars ultimately find some form of service, because that is the last sort of remaining thing that is fulfilling to them, because the pursuit of money hasn't done for them. And I get it. There's a certain amount of money that we all need to sustain ourselves, and beyond that, it really is about helping others. And there's no reason you can't start that now, because it's fulfilling in and of itself, and there are a lot of business opportunities that allow you to do both simultaneously. Number 10, selfless decisions. I guess this is the big one. Selfless decisions and behaviors are actually self-optimal, and this is how it works. If you create joy and trust in somebody else's life, if you make them happy, and you make them certain that you will continue to make them happy, they will want to work with you. In this sort of technologically, what's the word? In this age where they can readily tell people what their experience with you has been, 5-star rating, 4-star rating, 1-star rating, what that ultimately does is it creates kind of a halo effect. If you've done right by other people, they can magnify that. If you've done wrong by other people, they can magnify that. And if you develop a poor reputation because you've been vicious or short-sighted, then a whole bunch of other people are going to know. They're not going to want to work with you. And when it comes to working in multidisciplinary teams, right, you're ultimately going to have to work on your own, again, because no many people will want to work with you. You only have certain strengths, and the things that you need to do but can't find anybody else better to do it is going to take you a long, long time. You're ultimately wasting your life. Whereas if you have a multidisciplinary team, right, it's strictly more efficient. Shared goals, somebody else does in 2 hours what would take you 8, right? And you do their portion for 2. That would have taken them 8. Together, you get the project done in 4, as opposed to 16 or 10 or whatever the case might be. So basically, math proves karma. Right? Karma is a thing, but not for a supernatural reason. It's because at scale, when you have a good reputation, more people will want to work with you. They help you achieve your goals faster. So, with that, the bottom line, empathize with, please, and serve others virtuously. If you do that, it will come back to you. You have to do it at scale, you have to do it consistently. But if you're a nice person and you actively grow your own reputation and your profile, you're going to win in whatever it is that you want. And I think you'll find as you adopt this mindset, what you want will in itself change. Thank you. So with that, and I know that was relatively heavy, right? But there are some tips that I've put together both for networking and establishing your values and scheduling your time. A practical one that I use and have seen a lot of success both in my own life and in clients' lives using. We can certainly cover those. They're also available in the slide deck later on, I think, if you provide feedback on the session. So we have a choice, and we can maybe put it to a vote. Do we want to look at those now? We'll have them later anyways. Or do you guys want to do a short Q&A? Or just neither and go straight to networking? Q&A? Okay. Anybody? Okay. I don't have any objections. So yeah, I'd love to hear your question.
Well, yeah, so you said that it's really beneficial to schedule regularly to the meeting. Does it work the same way if you schedule a month in advance or like the next 3 weeks of your schedule?
It does. So I guess the longest out I would recommend is a week, right? And just from practical experience, it does depend. So one of the good things you can do is if you are in a situation where, say, you're a full-time student or you're in this repeating pattern, right? Maybe you're going to work, and at some point that will change. You'll graduate or you'll move, jobs. You can take advantage of a lot of the recurring tasks or the recurring appointment features in whatever calendar you use. So you can schedule things out. But what I would recommend is that as a daily practice, at the end of your evening, you look at what you want to do and you figure out your schedule tomorrow, make any changes you want. I don't recommend necessarily that you go through your calendar during the day and actively bump things, but if something of higher priority does come up, put it on your calendar, do that instead of what you originally wanted to do. That's sort of a practical way to both schedule 100% of the time, but also just minimize the administration time. Yeah.
So number 6 about the attention economy, that raised like a pretty important point, but what can we actually do about it?
Right. So here's what we can do individually, and here's what we can do as people within a business community. So individually, right, how do you not get affected by the attention economy? Basically, the attention economy takes advantage of, or people will take advantage of the fact that your brain is wired for short-term gratification. The only way to really circumvent that is to do the introspection, is to know yourself really well, really deeply, know what you want. And that can change with time, it's fine. But at any one time, try to know what you want, because in that moment, when you have the choice of either watching a cat video, which I get, they're cute, they're hilarious, or working towards this goal that you just feel this burning desire for, like, that is the only thing that's going to win out, is when you just feel more drawn towards doing what you know is you. Right? So that is I encourage you to really know yourself now. And we talk about sort of specifically what questions to ask, but that's the only way to really avoid the fact that our brains will progressively get hijacked by sort of a bunch of different types of media. Now, the other thing that we can do though as business leaders is recognize that, sure, we can do paid advertising to a degree, that's necessary, at least right now, but as it becomes increasingly less viable or economic to do so, right, the amount of attention you can buy and the reach and engagement and stuff kind of starts to diminish, ideally you sort of plan in advance, because you've seen this coming, is you need to build out these reputations progressively more organically. You really need to actually deliver value to your clients, to your customers, whether that's in lost leaders, whether that's in funny clips, whether that is in free samples, so on and so forth. Because when you actually deliver value to other people, that's when they are going to remember you, and that's when you have the chance of maybe earning a return customer. Right? You have to start with value, which is why you have to start with empathy, which is why sort of the whole self-awareness piece actually matters. Right? Because buying attention, most people will get priced out of the market soon. And I'm not, like, this is my belief. I hope that's not the case, but the numbers, I believe, show it. So those are two things you can do, both individually and then as business. Any other questions? Yeah.
With number 7, you talk about like defining your values.
Right.
What are your thoughts on like people having conflicting values, and how would you suggest going about them?
Okay. So I'm really glad you raised that. We'll just quickly dive into this one, time priority management tips. I speak about values here, but there is a very systematic way of actually doing this. So the first thing is identify what you value. It could be 3 things, it could be 5 things, it could be 10 things. The number of things doesn't matter. But basically, it's not that you don't value other things beyond the 7 that you have, it's that those 7 matter disproportionately more to you than the 8, 9, 10. 8, 9, 10 are diminishing returns in considering them, so we just push them aside. We focus on these top 7. The question you want to ask yourself, and there's a lot of different ways to do it, but just from a percentage thing, think of 100 waking hours. If you had no restrictions whatsoever, how would you allocate those 100 hours to these 7 things that you value, right? And the funny thing is, this is a weird question, but it can be answered because, you know what? We're already doing that in life, right? We are already spending our time on things that we value or things that we believe we have to do because of the things that it ultimately gives us. And so this is really just making that decision conscious, right? It's when you've done that, maybe you've got 7 things, maybe the top one is 20 hours, right? When you take those 7 and you figure out the relative weighting that you would place on them in an ideal scenario, that tells you how important they are to you, right? You can't do it with money because things that we subjectively value, it is really absurd to ask the question, how many dollars is this relationship worth to you, right? But how much time in a week is this relationship worth you, or do you expect to spend on it? That's a reasonable question. So it's about sort of dividing some amount of time and looking at the relative weighting. When you have that weighting, that becomes your decision criteria, right? When you're making medium or long-term decisions, you can then take maybe the 3 options you've got, score out of 10 on each of these things that you value, multiply that or cross-multiply that with the with the weights on the things that you value, and ultimately get a score at the bottom of all of those options. The one with the highest number is the one that best fits what you value, that you are going to be happiest with. Now, my experience says that you should be happy with a score that's 60 to 70% of the theoretical max score. No one option typically gets 10s across the board. But the advantage of that is that you don't need, it doesn't mean that you can't be 100% happy going with that option. If that is your best option, there is no opportunity cost. You move forward with it with full confidence. There's nothing you could do to regret that decision. You move forward, right? Knowing that you basically couldn't have done any better. Now, the other benefit of that too is it can be a better short-term tool, and that is when you're looking at how your week was spent. Did you spend time in roughly the proportions that you value on these different things? Did I spend as much time with my family as I would like? I get it. You're in school. Like, no. The answer is generally no. But by reflecting on that or feeling, hey, I'm feeling down. I wonder why that is. Let's audit my time. Let's look back at the last week. What are the things do I value? Maybe it's exercise that I didn't get any of, right? And that really can clarify it for you, and it can help you make plans for what next week's going to be. Because if you realize that, hey, not exercising at all actually has this effect on me, and you can be conscious and intentional of how it is that you plan your time moving forward. So that's how I'd recommend going about it. A lot of people have found a lot of success in doing that for making career decisions and stuff like that. So if there are any other questions, then I'm happy to answer them after this, but just in the interest of time. Thank you very, very much for your time and your attention.
Thank you again, Alan, for your speech. Really appreciate you coming over. Yes, so in appreciation of that, here is a gift from me.